In the wake of this shooting, President Trump is defiant. Even as investigators are still trying to piece together exactly what happened, the president and his team, well, they've been quick to reach conclusions of their own. President Trump is defending the officers and accusing Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey and Governor Tim Walz of, quote, top White House officials are claiming, without providing evidence, that the ICU nurse who was shot and killed was a domestic terrorist who wanted to cause maximum damage. And all of this, guys, before there's even been time for an investigation. So for some context here, this is now the third shooting in Minneapolis in less than 3 weeks involving federal agents.
This just happened. We are looking at a situation in Washington right now that changes the fundamental calculation of how America government operates. We have received confirmation of a coordinated rupture inside the executive branch that is unlike anything seen in modern political history. This is not just a disagreement over policy or a standard staff turnover. This is an institutional collapse happening in real time. At a specific moment this week, the internal pressure inside the administration broke the containment wall. We are seeing a convergence of three distinct crises at once. First, a lethal force incident in Minneapolis has triggered a direct standoff between state and federal power. Second, a massive coordinated resignation letter has been released by staff inside the new Department of Government Efficiency. Third, and perhaps most significant, is the confirmation of a deferred resignation program that has already removed an army of civil servants from their posts. The stakes here are absolute. We are moving past the point of political rhetoric and into a phase of structural failure. The machinery of the state is being dismantled not through legislation but through a forced exodus of the people who know how to run it. This is a constitutional crisis wrapped in an administrative purge. What matters right now is understanding that the government you thought existed yesterday does not exist in the same way today. The guardrails are gone.
And in each case, the Trump administration has rushed to claim that the agents were under threat and that the shootings were justified. Now, Governor Walz says he spoke to the White House and made it clear that the federal government cannot be trusted to lead this investigation, saying that the state will handle it. And all of this also comes just days after Vice President J.D. Vance traveled to Minnesota. He met with local officials to try and lower the temperature. And just this week, Trump acknowledged that ICE officers will sometimes make mistakes and go too far.
All right, Selena Wang for us. We appreciate.
We need to walk through exactly what is happening step by step because the speed of these events is designed to obscure the total picture. Let us begin in Minneapolis. The situation on the ground there has escalated into a direct conflict between state and federal authority. A shooting incident occurred involving federal agents. This is the third time in less than 3 weeks that federal agents have used lethal force in that city. In this specific instance, an ICU nurse was killed. The details are still being gathered by investigators, but the political narrative was set almost immediately. The White House did not wait for an inquiry. Top officials released a statement claiming the nurse was a domestic threat who intended to cause maximum damage. They provided no evidence to support this claim. They simply stated it as fact to justify the use of force. This fits a pattern we have seen repeatedly. In every recent incident involving federal agents in Minneapolis, the administration has immediately claimed the agents were under threat and declared the actions justified before any evidence was reviewed. The reaction from local leadership was immediate. Governor Tim Walz contacted the White House directly. He stated clearly that the federal government is no longer trusted to investigate its own agents. He announced that the state of Minnesota would take control of the investigation. This is a severe rupture in the federalist system. You have a state governor effectively telling the president that federal law enforcement has lost its legitimacy within state borders. This comes despite attempts by Vice President J.D. Vance to lower tensions during a recent visit. The diplomatic approach has failed. The friction is now open and public. While that crisis unfolds in the streets, a much quieter but larger crisis is destroying the federal workforce from the inside. The numbers we are seeing are staggering. Between January and November of last year, approximately 335,000 federal employees left their jobs. To put that in perspective, that number is larger than the entire population of many mid-sized American cities. These are not people who were fired for cause. These are not layoffs due to budget cuts. These are voluntary departures. However, the word voluntary is misleading here. We have confirmed the existence of a mechanism called the Deferred Resignation Program. This was rolled out by the Office of Personnel Management shortly after the second term began. The administration sent emails to roughly 2 million federal workers. That list covers almost the entire civilian workforce of the American government. The email offered a specific deal. If the employee agreed to resign on a fixed date chosen by the administration, they would continue to receive their full salary through the 30th of September 2025. They are paying people to not work. They are using taxpayer money to empty the desks of the federal government. About 150,000 people accepted this offer. They took the money and left. This program was not targeted. It did not look for bad employees or redundant positions. It was a blanket offer designed to clear out as many people as possible. The result is that agencies are now missing the personnel required to function. This leads us to the third major development, which involves the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. This is the new entity placed under the command of Elon Musk. The stated goal was to bring private sector innovation to the public sector. The reality has been a collision of cultures that has resulted in a mass walkout. A group of 21 staffers within this department submitted a joint resignation letter. This was a coordinated action. In their letter, these staffers did not just say they were unhappy. They made specific, serious accusations. They stated that they could no longer legitimize the actions of the leadership. They warned that the methods being used to dismantle government systems were putting the safety of the American people at risk. They described a chaotic environment where tech sector layoff tactics were being applied to critical government infrastructure without any understanding of the consequences. These were not political opponents. These were people hired to work for this administration. They were part of the team. They looked at the operations from the inside, saw the direction things were moving, and decided it was too dangerous to remain involved. When your own team writes a formal letter saying that your actions are dismantling the safety systems of the nation, that is a signal that the instability has reached a critical level. The administration's response to all of this has been defiance. President Trump has spoken publicly about these numbers. He has not expressed concern. He has not tried to stem the tide of departures. Instead, he has framed it as a victory. In a speech on January 19, he defended the reduction of the workforce. He referred to the jobs of these civil servants as boring. He stated that he was proud of the numbers and promised that the 2026 budget would include even deeper cuts. We are seeing the impact of this right now. It is not theoretical. The loss of 335,000 workers means that the physical capacity of the government to do its job is gone. Reports are coming in from multiple agencies. The American Agency for International Development, or USAID, has seen its foreign aid operations gutted. There are not enough people left to manage the logistics of humanitarian relief. The Department of Education is failing to process grant applications for schools because the specialists who handle those files are gone. The Forest Service is operating with skeleton crews as fire season approaches. This is the reality of the situation. You have a government that is aggressively shedding its own ability to function. You have a president who is cheering for the collapse of his own workforce. You have a state governor blocking federal agents from investigating a homicide. And you have a specialized department meant to fix the government hemorrhaging staff who say the current plan is dangerous. This is not a political debate. This is a mechanical failure of the state. We need to analyze why this is happening and why it is different from anything we have seen before. In the history of America, there have been moments of tension between the civil service and the White House. Presidents often complain about the bureaucracy. They often try to trim budgets. But we have never seen a deliberate, systematic attempt to decapitate the institutional knowledge of the entire executive branch on this scale. The strategy here is distinct. In the past, if a president wanted to change an agency, they would appoint new leaders and change the rules. That takes time. It involves lawyers and regulations. The strategy we are witnessing now is different. It is a strategy of attrition and inducement. By using the deferred resignation program, the administration bypassed the legal difficulties of firing civil servants. It is very hard to fire a federal worker. It is very easy to pay them to leave. This matters because of who accepts these offers. The people most likely to take a buyout are often the ones with the most experience. They are the veterans who are close to retirement. They are the experts who have been there for 20 years and know how the systems work. When they leave, they take the manual with them. They take the relationships, the history, and the technical expertise. You cannot replace a 20-year veteran of the State Department with a new political appointee. The knowledge gap that is being created right now will take a generation to fix. We also need to look at the power dynamic between the president and the governor of Minnesota. This is a flashpoint that signals a weakening of federal authority. In a normal, functioning state, the federal government has supremacy in matters of federal law enforcement, but supremacy relies on legitimacy. If the people and the local leaders do not believe the federal government is acting lawfully or truthfully, the system breaks down. When the White House claimed the nurse was a terrorist without evidence, they traded credibility for a short-term political defense. The cost of that trade is that a governor now feels empowered to shut them out. This is how central authority crumbles. It does not happen all at once. It happens when local centers of power decide they can do a better job of protecting their citizens than the central government can. That is a very dangerous road to go down. The situation with Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency offers a clear view into the ideological clash at play. The philosophy being applied is that government should run like a tech company. In a tech company, if a division is losing money or moving slowly, you cut it. You break things to move fast. But government is not designed to move fast. It is designed to be stable. It is designed to ensure that the water is clean, that the planes do not crash, and that the checks go out on time. The resignation letter from the 21 staffers is an indictment of that tech philosophy applied to public safety. They are warning that you cannot move fast and break things when the things you are breaking are the systems that keep people alive. The friction here is between the desire for disruption and the necessity of competence. The administration has chosen disruption. They view the civil service not as a tool to be used, but as an obstacle to be removed. This is also a psychological operation. By sending an email to 2 million people saying, essentially, we will pay you to go away, the administration sent a message to the workforce that they are unwanted. It creates an environment of fear and uselessness. If you stay, you are working for a boss who actively despises your role. If you leave, you get paid. It is a rational choice for the individual to leave, but it is a disaster for the collective good. We must also consider the geopolitical angle. America projects power through its agencies. When the State Department and USAID lose their staff, American influence abroad recedes. China and Russia do not need to defeat America in a war to gain influence. They just need to wait for America to stop showing up. When we stop managing disaster relief or development projects because we fired the people who do it, other powers step into that void. This domestic purge has massive foreign policy consequences. Looking at the immediate future, the consequences of these actions are going to move from the administrative to the personal. In the short term, we are going to see a sharp decline in the quality of life services provided by the federal government. This will not be dramatic at first. It will look like delays. Tax refunds will take longer. Passport applications will get stuck. Farmers waiting for subsidies will face silence. Veterans seeking medical appointments will face longer queues. The situation in Minneapolis is likely to escalate. If the state investigator concludes that the federal agents acted criminally and the federal government refuses to hand them over or acknowledge the jurisdiction, we will have a constitutional standoff. We could see a situation where state troopers and federal agents are in a direct jurisdictional conflict. The rhetoric from the White House suggests they will not back down, which means the temperature in that city is going to rise. We also have to look at the 2026 budget cycle. The president has promised deeper cuts. This means the 335,000 people who have already left are just the first wave. The administration is likely to target entire agencies for elimination. We should expect to see moves to close down departments that deal with regulation, environment, and education. The goal is not to make them smaller, but to make them non-existent. The long-term consequence is the creation of a hollow state. This is a government that looks like a government on the outside. It has buildings, flags, and titles, but inside it cannot execute its will. It cannot respond to a pandemic. It cannot manage a financial crisis. It cannot secure its borders effectively because the logistics require manpower that no longer exists. This creates a vulnerability that goes beyond politics. If a major crisis hits America in the next 2 years, a new virus, a massive cyber attack, a natural disaster, the response will be chaotic. The institutional memory of how to handle these things is gone. The people who knew who to call are gone. We are entering a period of high risk. Finally, we must understand the political endgame. This implosion is being sold to the base as draining the swamp. It may work politically for a while, but eventually the dysfunction will become undeniable. When the basic services stop, the anger that is currently directed at the deep state will turn toward the people in charge. You cannot govern a country of 330 million people with a skeleton crew and a philosophy of disruption. The resignation of the Doge staffers is the canary in the coal mine. They are the insiders telling us that the plan is not working. The question is not if the system will break further, but when and how much damage it will cause when it does. We are watching the deliberate deconstruction of the American administrative state. The effects of this will be felt for decades. This is the new reality, and it is advancing every single day.